Check. There we go. Finally got my audio working there. All right. It is Friday, the 28th, and today in today's stream, one of the things that I wanted to talk about a lot was the X-Men. It's, I think, my favorite comic, and the main focus is going to be Chris Claremont's run because I just think Chris Claremont's run of X-Men is one of the most influential comic book runs in all of comics. And I think that, hold on, let me change the angle of this thing a little bit. I think he should be like on the Mount Rushmore of greatest comic writers of all time, or at least in the discussion because of how amazing that run, that Chris Claremont run of X-Men is, and how important it is to the history of comics and everything else like that, and how much I personally like it. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. I brought out a bunch of omnibuses. Now, I did not get all my X-Men omnibuses because there's so many of them. I have almost two full shelves, or I almost have one full shelf, top to bottom, all X-Men. But I grabbed a lot of important ones, and I grabbed a lot of single issues and stuff that are in my collection. Obviously, I've got some stuff back here. This is, famous John Byrne cover. We'll talk about that. Hold on one second. Let me just open this up. Okay, great. So, we're going to talk about the X-Men. Where do we start? Right here with this beautiful, hold on, let me make sure. My mic went out on me the other day, so I want to make sure that my mic doesn't drop out randomly like it did the other day, and I record myself just making no noise. Anyway, I start off with this beautiful Alex Ross cover, homage to the original X-Men first issue. And this is the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee era. There's two omnibuses of this era. I have both of them. Let's take a closer look. So this is a modernization of the cover. But this is the very first X-Men. Oh, actually, Roy Thomas was involved in this too. But the very first X-Men comics to ever be written are in here. And here you go. So this is the original cover, and this is what they did to modernize it. And Alex Ross, I mean, it's beautiful. So you get the original team. You get Angel, Iceman, Cyclops, Beast, and Professor Xavier, and she's not on this page, but you also get Jean Grey. There's a couple important things to know about this run, though. The first thing I want to, kind of just mention, because I think it's important to know, is that this run of X-Men got basically canceled. And by the way, if I ever say anything wrong here, please leave a comment or say something in chat. But, X-Men was viewed as not one of their stronger titles, and it got canceled. And not that this early stuff isn't good. There's definitely some good stuff in here, and it's really important because Stan Lee created the X-Men. I mean, this is the origins of everything. Oh yeah, Angel here too. I didn't mention him before. And so there's so much importance to what Stan Lee did when he wrote the X-Men that I even though this stuff wasn't strong enough to continue on with the same creative team and had to go away for a while, you got Stan Lee, who's, for the Silver Age is like, the writer of the Silver Age. And then you got Jack Kirby. And I love Jack Kirby art. So hold on, I'm clipping a little bit here. And I love Jack Kirby art. So that excites me. And that's why I want to own issues from this era. So I have a couple of those books. So this is X-Men 7, literally the 7th X-Men issue ever to come out, which I think is pretty cool to have that in the collection. Actually, let me check. What year was this? Like 1960? oops, or 63 probably. Yeah, this one came out in 1964. So this is a 60-year-old book, or 60-year-old book. And it is, and oh, what's cool about this book is that it's the second appearance of Blob, and it's the first appearance of Cerebro, the machine that amplifies Charles Xavier's powers. So this is actually a key. It's from the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby era. It has a really, really cool Jack Kirby cover. And I love the appearance of Magneto there, and you've got Quicksilver and the Blob right there. It's so funny how they used to make Iceman look like he just looked like he was covered in snow. I guess it's the best the artist could do at the time. And then, as you know, another thing I forgot to mention is Beast isn't blue yet. That's another thing about this era of this stuff. Oh, there's Scarlet Witch, which you find out later, or I'm not sure if you know at this point already, or if you find out later that they're the children of Magneto. But yeah, really cool. This one's in pretty good condition too. I'm surprised. I remember buying this and I thought it was a little more beat up than it is. So yeah, this is in great condition. And like the 7th X-Men issue ever to come out, I think it's pretty cool. Another one from this era is this one right here. This one does have a stamp on it, but this is X-Men 11 from 1965, and it's the first appearance of the Stranger, a being with the accumulated energy and intelligence of a conquered race of aliens. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I read that straight off my screen because I don't know anything about the Stranger, but I do know this is an early X-Men issue, which is one of the reasons why I like it, and this one's a little bit more beat up. But I still think this is a really cool book. I love how they have the angel flying over the X-Men logo up here. Now they start showing Iceman as more of ice than snow, which I think is definitely a better move. And yeah, another really cool book. So that's what's in this book, and I can't like understate the importance of X-Men from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, because there's Scarlet Witch. This stuff is just it's classic. It's so important. This is stuff that like would go on to revolutionize comics, right? This idea of the X-Men who are outcasts, and people didn't like them because they were mutants, and here's an early appearance of the Juggernaut. All that stuff happens in here, right? So super important. But the main focus of like this live that I want to talk about is Chris Claremont's run, which starts in here. Now there is a book that I really want in my collection that I'm gonna have to buy, like probably a kind of beat up version, because I don't spend $500 in comic books. I mean, the upper level of what I spend usually is around like $250. That's like way up high, maybe $300 if it was something that I really, really, really wanted in my collection. Maybe for this book I'd pay $300. But I generally am lower than that amount. So I kind of hunt for comic books that are, really cool books, but like with the motto of, like everyone says, low grade is better than no grade. I'm definitely one of those people. And I there are certain things I can't ignore. If it's like a really big crease or a color patch missing, like on the main cover, I won't buy books like that. But if the majority of the cover looks good and it's something that you can't see if you're standing, like if I put it up on my wall over there, and you can't see unless you walk close to it and stuff like that, then I'm pretty much okay with it. So one of the books that I really want to get in my collection is let's see, where was it here? Yeah, this one right here. This is the start of Chris Claremont's run on X-Men, his 16-year run. Oh, hold on, I didn't show. There we go. This one right here. So yes, this is the start of his 16-year run on X-Men, almost 2-decade run. It's Uncanny X-Men 94. Now, according to this website, that hold on, let me do this so I can show this easier. Come on. Here we go. Yeah. So on the high end, this book is worth $2K. And on the low end, so we're talking about way low grade, we're looking at $200. I didn't realize this is also a key for a bunch of reasons here. Second, this is the second Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Rex, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Thunderbird. These are new characters to the X-Men team, and obviously their first appearance was in this book, right? Not the ones that carried over, Cyclops and Jean Grey, that carried over from the old X-Men. This wasn't their first appearance, but this one, I don't know if I'll ever get this in my collection, but I can dream. This one, I think I probably can. I'm just gonna have to shell out like $300, $400, $500 for one that's in low grade, but still in pretty good condition. But this is a big time key for me, and it's not in my collection yet, and neither is this one. But I do have the next best thing, which is the omnibus. I don't know if that's the next best thing, but to me it is. And let me adjust my chair a little bit. This Omni is awesome. I've read this. I've read the second volume. I've read the third volume. I've read the fourth volume. The fifth volume is out, and then you start getting into different Omnis, like event Omnis for Chris Claremont. But oh, and one thing to note too before I get into this issue, this Giant Size X-Men, wasn't written by Chris Claremont. This was written by Len Wein. So a lot of people think that this is the start. This is the start of Uncanny X-Men, but it's not the start of Chris Claremont's run. That is this issue here, 94, X-Men 94. So going back, you had the Stan Lee era X-Men gets canceled, not selling well enough. We're getting rid of that book. So they decide they're going to bring it back, and they bring it back with Giant Size X-Men #1, written by Len Wein, and the author is not the author, but the artist is Dave Cockrum, and that sells amazingly well. Does super great, and then that's when, after that is when Chris Claremont comes on the book and starts his run at X-Men 94. And then it's just all history from there, right? Not just the... I think what makes his run so good is that it was ahead of its time. If you look at the DC books that were coming out then, like if you ever read like Justice League Bronze Age, which I have the Justice League Bronze Age books, if you compare that, and again that's Bronze Age, and what we're talking about here is the 70s, so this is Bronze Age as well. If you compare that to Chris Claremont's X-Men, you can see Chris Claremont's X-Men is leaps and bounds ahead of Justice League in the Bronze Age, and I would say most of DC in the Bronze Age. He's doing longer stories, longer multiple issue arcs. His character development is better. The new characters that he added to the team are some of the most popular X-Men of all time, in Nightcrawler and of course Wolverine. But now this wasn't the first appearance of Wolverine. That was in Hulk 181. Colossus, Storm. I mean, these are characters that are people's absolute favorites, and they all came. Now they didn't necessarily come from his brain, because he didn't write this book, but he developed these characters. He made them into what everybody loves, and that's why I've always been so excited to get to talk to Chris Claremont when I see him at conventions and stuff. And I've got a lot of books signed by him. So here's one. This is X-Men. What is this one? Oh yeah, 135, and this is like an iconic John Byrne cover, and this is during the Dark Phoenix saga. And as you can see, this is signed by Chris Claremont. So I actually have a lot of Chris Claremont signatures in my collection. This is just one of them. But that's because he's one of my favorite creators, and it's so awesome that he's still around. He's still writing comics even. I think he was even just recently he was doing a book. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was in the realm of X-Men. And he was still doing some comics for Marvel. He's going to the cons and stuff. He always comes to Heroes Con in North Carolina. So I don't know, maybe he lives nearby or something, but And whenever you go up to Chris Claremont at a convention, he's always telling some crazy story about like how, something he did, or telling a story about the X-Men, and about how he just didn't like what they did with a certain character later on, or like one thing I remember him telling me specifically was like, oh, when I killed Jean Grey, she was dead. She wasn't in like a cocoon at the bottom of the lake or whatever. Like she wasn't. All this crazy stuff that they came up with later is silly. Like that character was gone. That's the direction I wanted to go. With my comics, and of course he didn't have full creative control over every single thing that happened with the X-Men. So eventually Jean Grey came back. Oh yeah, needed that Coke. But I just think he's a really interesting guy. And I just really love his work. All right, so let's look at this. Oh, and then another thing that makes this run so iconic and so great is, and I'm not sure if he's here yet. Okay, artist is artist is still Dave Cockrum at this point, but at some point here, John Byrne takes over the art, and it's basically a dream team of comic book creators, which is Chris Claremont writing, John Byrne art, pencils, and Terry Austin inking. Like if I had to choose like best all-time creative team, like that might be it. The art is so freaking beautiful, and the writing is so good. Everything that happens in here is so important to the history of the comics, and that's one of the things I really love about Chris Claremont's stuff. Even his early run, the stuff that happens in here is important to stuff that happens today in modern X-Men comics. It was so good even at the beginning of his run. They've kept these characters as part of the X-Men. They've kept these stories as important things that have happened, to the characters. When I read my Justice League from the Bronze Age omnibus, a lot of times the stuff that happens in there, there's like villains that show up and are there for 4 or 5 issues, and I've never read anything about those villains ever again. What Chris Claremont wrote in here, like the characters that appear in here, stay around, and they're around for a long time, and they're still around in modern comics, and I think at this point, let me see, at this point, I think John Byrne's on the book yet. Now, let me see if I might be wrong. Okay, this is one. Yeah, John Byrne. So this is it right here. This is like the dream team of dream teams of comics. Those 3 names: Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Terry Austin. That's what you want to see for an X-Men title. Look, okay, you got a kind of racy picture of Storm there. And I'm gonna go to. I did pull out the second volume of this as well. Look, just look at this. Freaking beautiful John Byrne art. Oh, the Savage Land. Yeah, this stuff is everything in this entire omnibus is classic. Is so good. And I got the second volume. And I also have, so this cover is, okay, here we go. So there's the original cover, signed by Chris Claremont. John Byrne cover. This is the death of Jean Grey. That's this issue. That's what makes this a key. And this is the modernization of that cover for the omnibus. So, yeah, one of my favorite covers ever by John Byrne. I have another one. Actually, this is also John Byrne, and then I have another one over there that I'm gonna grab in a second. But yeah, this is, and to have this sign, and this is a high grade copy of this as well. So yeah, I love this, and this is also this like event. It's not really an event, but this storyline, this arc with Jean Grey and the Dark Phoenix and everything that happens with the is it the Kree? Yeah, is epic and is amazing. So, and that's what's in this second volume. And this volume is like, this entire thing is John Byrne. It also has one of my favorite all-time first appearances in it, which is this one right here. This is the first appearance of Kitty Pryde, my favorite X-Men. I know that's not kind of a weird favorite X-Men, but I don't know if it's a weird favorite X-Men, but I know a lot of people like, you know, Storm, Wolverine, Cyclops, Colossus, whatever. I've always kept connected with the character of Kitty Pryde. I've always liked her in the animated series in X-Men 97 and in in this material and in what else? Oh, she was played by at the time. So I'm not, you know, I'm gonna say her name at the time. It was Ellen Page played her, and I thought she was great in that movie. So yeah, my favorite is Kitty Pryde, and this is the first appearance. And this is a book that I, you know, for a long time I was trying to get this in my collection, and I finally found one that had something really important, which is this date stamp right here, which lowered the value of it. But I don't care because I think date stamps are kind of cool. And it says 1979 on there, October 15, 1979, which is pretty cool. And because it had that stamp on there, it was cheaper. I think I got it for like $94, which is a good price for this book, and it's in great condition. So yeah, I was super excited to get this. And you know what? Actually, while I have this out, may as well do this real quick. Told you I like Kitty Pryde. There's another one. There's another one. Her and Colossus. There's another one. There's another one. And I got a whole other stack of Kitty Pryde appearances from the comics over there that I'm going to show in a minute. And then I have, one of my favorite books by her is in The Marauders, where she's like a pirate. I have that one as well, but that's in a frame, and I didn't feel like grabbing that to pull it out here. So yeah, you get that in this book, and like I said, this book is like all John Byrne art and Terry Austin, and you get Dark Phoenix, which is so good. This would set up. I mean, Marvel like every 5 years does a recurrence of Jean Grey as the Dark Phoenix. Like seriously, like they've done so many like they've come back to her as the Phoenix like so many times in the comics. But this is when it was originally done. There's a Sentinel. I love Sentinels. I think they're so cool. I have a Sentinel. I have a Sentinel Jumbo Funko Pop. But this is the first time it happened. There's Kitty Pryde. Early appearance. Storm. Oh yeah, and then something else that he did in his run, which I actually mentioned this to him. I'm sure that at some point in this volume you get there is the Brood. So X-Men in space. Like, oh, there's Magneto. Love it. Man, I can't. I just flipping through this book makes me so happy. I just can't express. And there's the Avengers. Oh, is this? Did they put an Avengers issue in here? Sometimes they do that for the continuity of the omnibus. Because yeah, you have like, yeah, they put Avengers in here. I think because there must be something that happened. I read all this, but I read it a while ago now, so I don't remember every single thing in these omnis. But there must be something that happens in this Avengers issue that was important to the X-Men story. There's the Blob, Scarlet Witch. But anyway, yeah, this is so good. But you get the Brood in here eventually. Let me see if where do we have the Brood? But it's X-Men in space, and there are these giant. I think it must be in the third volume that I don't have pulled out right now. But it's the Brood are like an alien race that infect you, and then like I think they like hatch out of your body. I think it's like Alien, honestly. I'm trying to remember. They're on the cover of this book. They're in here. All right, I can hold it up this way. So this is the third volume, and one of the things that Chris Claremont did in this run, which I think was so cool and so ridiculous, is that the way that the alien race was getting around was on these giant living space whales, and they were so big that like there was one on the surface that was like dying, right, or decomposing, and its bones rose up out of the atmosphere because the thing itself was so huge. And I mentioned that to Chris Claremont at a convention, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, those were so cool. The giant space whales, yeah, like I love those things." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Man, what an interesting thing to come out of someone's brain." And that's all in this volume 3, I believe. And this is signed too by Chris Claremont. I forgot I got some of my omnibuses signed. Let's see. And again, I think John Byrne's still on the book at this point. But I know in here we get to some really cool Brood stuff. Yeah, here's the Brood. And Charles Xavier's. Oh yeah, and I remember reading this part with Wolverine on this alien world when all the other people are basically infected by the Brood, and like he's on his own. Here's the space whale. This is the decomposing space whale, right? It's ridiculous. And then what happens to Storm here is a little convoluted, but I think it's also really really cool. Here's Wolverine battling one of the Brood. Here you go. So yeah, this part where Wolverine's like, he's on his own. He's like a savage. He's the only one that's not like completely destroyed by the Brood infection because he has his healing factor, and so it's kind of up to him to escape and to go rescue the rest of the X-Men. And so, spoiler alert, but he does. I remember reading it, and I don't get this way often when I read comic books, but I was like, man, this is like intense. I was like, oh my God, I was getting stressed reading it. Oh, there's a Binary, because another thing to come out of Chris Claremont's run is Binary. Captain Marvel turns into Binary. That does happen in here. It's kind of interesting how it happens. This is the whole thing in here. I don't remember all the details to it. Again, I read this book, but it's been a while since I read it. I actually maybe want to go back and reread. Look at this. This is awesome. And, obviously this kind of thing here is where they, where they kind of got what Captain Marvel does in the MCU, where she's flying through the ships and destroying it and stuff like that. This is where it happened first. And this is really cool. Oh yeah. This is what happens to Storm. She she's trying to help the space whale, and she kind of dies, and then she's in incubation, and she's like in an egg, and she somehow comes back to life. I don't remember. Honestly. I'm sorry, I'm butchering this story, but I don't remember exactly what happens with Storm. It's just that she dies, but she kind of comes back. And then during this whole time, while the X-Men are gone, Charles Xavier thinks they're dead, and he's started a new mutant team, which he's much more protected over, which is the New Mutants. And this is the issue where the X-Men get back and the New Mutants are here, and the X-Men bust in like, whoa, who's in our house? And the New Mutants are like, whoa, who are these guys breaking in through the window? And they kind of have a little scuffle here until they realize, oh, you're the original X-Men and you're alive. Oh yeah, and this is kind of the conclusion of the story with Charles Xavier infected with the Brood disease or whatever, turns him into the Brood. So that's cool. I have the New Mutant omnibuses. Here's one right here. This is the volume 1. Oh, thanks, Mike. Yeah, that Avengers Annual is the first Rogue. Oh, that's right. That's why that's in there, of course. And oh man, I actually, you know what? I think I have that book in my collection. Actually, now that you mentioned that, I think I have that somewhere. I'm not going to pull it out now because it's one of these 4 boxes, and I don't feel like going through all of them. But obviously, Rogue becomes a really important character. Obviously, she starts off as a villain. I think she's working for, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's working for Emma Frost or something. I don't remember. Oh, this is signed by Bob McLeod. Or no, this is Chris Claremont. Maybe I didn't get this signed by Bob McLeod. But that's, I honestly, I forgot that I got a lot of my Omnis signed. I wonder if, like, when I sell these one day, if having them signed by Chris Claremont or whoever it is, I have a few others that are signed. It's not just Chris Claremont that signed my Omnis, but I wonder if that's going to, like, add value, because it's not, I don't have a certificate of authenticity. And for omnibuses, like, you don't care about edition. I don't know that you really care about it signed. You just want it in good condition so you could read it. I mean, I know some people out there just collect the Omnis because they just want them on the shelf, but I think most Omni collectors actually want to read them. Oh, this is great. This is like the origins of all the New Mutants. It's in this, there's like a trade paperback that came out first with this art that established all the characters, and then they had their ongoing New Mutants run. Oh, these are cool. This is some of the Sentinels, and oh, this is all happening in the Danger Room here. This is all really, really good, really classic stuff as well. This is them dealing with the Brood. So this is all during the period where the X-Men are away and they think they're all dead. And then here you go. That same issue that I just showed in the other omnibus is right here in this omnibus. So this is like the two titles kind of clashing together, which is another thing that Chris Claremont was doing, that, like, because remember, it wasn't just the main X-Men title that Chris Claremont was writing. He was writing New Mutants. He was writing things like X Factor and stuff like that, and making them all come together and making all the stories interlock. Which, don't get me wrong, that was something that was going on, like, somewhat around the time where he was doing this. But, like, he's one of the people that really made it popular. Really made it, like, to have everything interconnected and to have longer story arcs and longer character development. I think I give Chris Claremont, like, a lot of credit for that. And it's why that his work was so amazing. Then let me see here. Oh yeah, then I didn't bring out volume 4, but this is volume 5. You've got the Trial of Magneto in it, which is pretty cool. Really, really good stuff in here. I'll be honest, I haven't read volume 5 yet. I've read volume 1, 2, 3, 4, but I haven't read volume 5, and I have to decide if I want to go back and reread volumes like 2 and 3, maybe 2, 3, and 4 before I read volume 5, but I'll figure that out. All right, then you get into some of the other Omnis, like this awesome one with Doctor Doom on the front. This one came out semi-recently, and it's the prelude to the Mutant Massacre. I didn't pull out Mutant Massacre, but I did grab this one, and Chris Claremont is still writing at this point. Remember, his run was 16 years long, and I have read a lot of this material, actually, but I'm gonna be reading all my X-Men Omnis, like, in order at some. Well, I'm trying to do it, but I'm doing it sporadically. I've gone ahead for some X-Men stuff, and then I've gone back. But this is a huge Omni too, by the way. For Marvel, this is a really big Omni. And this is, like, very much 80s art in here. There's Rogue and Nightcrawler, and I have not read this book, but I have read some of the material from inside of this book. Oh, here's Nightcrawler. Oh yeah, Nightcrawler #1. I forgot he had his own series for a while. I know one of the guys I watch on here is Lunch Money Comics, and his favorite character of all time is Nightcrawler. And I remember him showing some of these issues that he picked up for his collection. By the way, just a shout out to Lunch Money Comics. His videos definitely influenced the way I collect, and I love watching his videos. I still watch his videos all the time, and it's really, really good content. And he makes like comic book hunting, and he just makes comic book hunting fun, and he collects it in a very similar way to the way I do, which is like everything doesn't have to be in like, super high grade, and he's always finding comic books in like weird places at garage sales and thrift stores and all. Just I don't know how he has time to go out to all of these different places and hunt for comic books, but that's all he does on that channel. And sometimes he finds like grails. Like I remember one where I think it was a garage sale, and he found a Hulk 181 in someone's box, and they were gonna sell it to him for like next to nothing. And I think, I often think like, man, would I be this good in this situation? But I'm pretty sure the guy from Lunch Money Comics, he told him, this, you have a lot of value here. I can't buy this from you for $10 or whatever what the guy was offering. So we got X-Men Inferno. There you go. Let me grab my single issues over here. Oh, here's another really famous John Byrne cover. That's one of my favorite John Byrne covers, with Wolverine, the Sentinel, and Storm there. So I love having that one in the collection. And then this Inferno book, I really like to get the issues that are the cover of my omnibuses. So even if they aren't big keys, like I guess this is a key because it's the first issue of Inferno, which is a major X-Men event. But I think that's the only reason. I'd have to double check that. I don't know if that's key for any other reasons. But the reason I got it is because I like the fact that it's the cover of my omnibus, my Inferno omnibus. So, and there's that. This is I have read this in another format. Oh yeah, look at this Archangel. This book has like barely been opened by me. Really, really, really awesome stuff in there. All right, what else did I want to touch on? Oh yeah, I have this too. This is the X-Men animated series omnibus, which is, I think, like really, really cool. I read this instead of when they came back out with X-Men 97. I wanted to rewatch the original X-Men 97 to just remember everything that happened before I watched the new season. And then I saw they had this X-Men the animated series omnibus, and I checked, and this is like, I think, verbatim what happens in X-Men 97, but in comic form. And so I was like, you know what? Instead of watching it, I'm just going to read it, because I like reading comics anyway. And so I bought this omnibus, and this is literally all the stories from the original X-Men 97 are in here. I love the art because I love 90s comic book art. The exaggerated anatomy and everything, and all the pouches and all that stuff is like, is hilarious, but also I think it's really awesome. And there's Gambit. We'll get a close-up on Gambit. What else we got here? Oh yeah, Storm in this like classic all-white costume from the animated series, which is so cool. And this is the whole thing. So yeah, I thought I'd pull out this omnibus real quick and show it. Colossus in his regular form there. Juggernaut. Oops, go the other way. So yeah, that's that book. I also read this, and it was really great. Astonishing X-Men. I actually have almost every issue of this, like the original single issues that came out. I'm working on collecting them, and I think I'm missing like 2 or 3. I actually showed one of them earlier. One of the Kitty Pryde issues that I had over there earlier was from this run. This is an amazing run. They pulled heavily from this Astonishing X-Men run by Joss Whedon for the Fox X-Men movies. Like the stuff with the mutant cure and all that kind of thing, was all from here, and also the characters, like the team and everything else like that. This book, this X-Men run, I always recommend, and everyone should read this. It was really highly influential in a lot of the movies and stuff. Here's one that's awesome by a author that I really like, Grant Morrison. Now, Grant Morrison gets a lot of heat because, or not heat, but like some people don't like his writing that much because he sometimes things are a little convoluted or a little bit hard to follow, I guess I would say. He does like really complex stories, and I mean, like, okay, for example, something you get in this book that was just featured in Deadpool and Wolverine is the first appearance of Cassandra Nova. I'm trying to remember. Is that her name? Charles Xavier's twin sister, right? Look, there she is. And look, this is exactly what they were doing in the movies. So right there, they recreated this effect like one for one for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And her first appearance is in here. I think I have her first appearance in the single issues, but I don't know where that is right now, and I'm not going to go hunting for it. I'm sitting here surrounded by my omnibuses and single issues and stuff to the point where I almost can't walk out of here. But yeah, this is really cool. But this whole concept of like Charles Xavier having a twin sister who I guess like died in the womb, but then her mental, like she was psychic, so her what do you call it? Her mind survived elsewhere and then came back as this character. Like it's such a Grant Morrison concept, and that's why some people are like, that's a good example of why some people don't like Grant Morrison's, writing, because it's a little crazy. But you get so much good stuff in this new X-Men run. And this is also where you get the whole idea. Like this is what heavily influenced, the Charles Xavier's school being like an actual school with a bunch of students like you see in the Fox movies. They pulled a lot from this one as well for the Fox X-Men movies. And where, the X-Men are like teachers and they're teaching everyone. And of course, the regular stuff you get in here with like, oh, this character. There's a big twist with this character. I guess I won't give it away. But this character also was retconned. So there's a twist with this character. He's also been retconned, and this is another Grant Morrisism that is kind of cool for this run. Like the reveal about that character is cool, but again, it's a little convoluted. And then also the artist in here is what's his name? And Frank Quietly, who some people love his art and some people hate it. I love it. I think it's okay at this point. It's not Frank Quietly anymore, but at the beginning of this, it's Frank Quietly, and his art's great. But yeah, and I think in here you get the first. I think Phantom X is his first appearance is in here as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, new X-Men, great run. But that's and now and this isn't, of course, Chris Claremont at this point, so I've kind of gone off the rails there, but. That's the thing about the X-Men is that, like, I'm trying to think of like a bad X-Men run right now, and like from the main title, and I just have a hard time doing it. I really think that like it like the main X-Men title. Well, okay, I'll give you one. When Jim Lee first came on the book, that first volume. This is volume 2. The first volume of the Chris Claremont and Jim Lee X-Men. A lot of people do not like it very much. I'm also in that camp. It's not that great, but it got a lot better in volume 2. So I guess I would say that maybe that's one part of X-Men that isn't the strongest. Some of these events, Inferno is like, it's all right. It's not one of my favorite events and stuff like that. But yeah, the volume 1 from this set of 2 omnibuses is definitely the thing I think catches the most flack as part of Chris Claremont's run. But this stuff is, I mean, this is another team up of amazing writing and amazing art, which is Chris Claremont and now Jim Lee. And this is like the stuff that started to make Jim Lee really famous. He drew that awesome Magneto and stuff in here. Oh, this is X Factor, but the first issue of X-Men should... Oh, that would be in the other book, I guess. I think it might be in the other book. Let me see if that issue is in here. Yeah, that's in the other book, that like famous... I think it was like the highest selling comic book of all time was the X-Men that was Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. But yeah, this is another dream team of comic book creators. Man, Jim Lee is one of the people that I would really love to meet Jim Lee or get something signed by him. Do I have a Jim Lee signature in my collection? Yes, I do. Hold on. Oh, yeah, right here. This is Batman 614. One of my favorite Jim Lee images of all time. Look at this Joker and Batman choking him. So freaking cool. And I actually don't think this cover gets enough credit for how awesome it is. And this book is signed by the entire creative team: Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb, the writer, Alex Sinclair, and Scott Williams. So this is one of my favorite books in my collection. My wife got this for me, actually, and it does have a Jim Lee signature. All right, going back to this. Yeah, this is 90s again for X-Men. And like I was saying before, I love 90s comic book art. I don't know why, but some people don't like it. And well, I guess I know why. It's a little bit ridiculous the way they draw. Even Jim Lee is a little bit guilty of kind of drawing the anatomy and the muscles and everything, like, and all the patches and everything, a little bit ridiculous and over the top. The best example I could give of that would be Rob Liefeld with Deadpool and basically anything Rob Liefeld drew. Rob Liefeld is like the example of why some people don't like 90s comic book art. Don't get me wrong, I actually like a lot of Rob Liefeld's art. I'm a fan of his work myself, but there's a large group of people out there that hate his work, and I think here it is. This is the one. This is the X-Men by Jim Lee, and it's the connecting cover with Magneto here at the end. So this is arguably like Jim Lee's most famous cover, I guess. I'm trying to think if there. Oh, I have another one by Jim Lee actually. Right here. Yeah, there. And this one still has the 3D glasses in it. I guess they did like a 3D version of this comic. I'm not sure if this is the first print or this is another print they did of this later on, but I decided to leave it like in the poly bag or whatever with the glasses. I thought it was pretty cool. But this is a Jim Lee cover on X-Men that's pretty famous. And actually, I can't believe I'm about to say this. Wait, do I have this? Oh yeah, I think I do have this. I don't have the 4 individual ones, but they have a version of this cover that folds out to be this whole thing, and I have that version. I don't have, but I want to get the one that's just this, because this is like a sexy 90s Magneto, and it's just like this is like the coolest Magneto image ever, in my opinion. And the fact that it's drawn by Jim Lee, I mean, it's just this. I love this. This is why I love 90s comic book art. Oh yeah, and look at this. Oh God, Jim. I have a big man crush on Jim Lee because his art is amazing. Look at Juggernaut and that Sentinel back there, Dark Phoenix. Mr. Sinister? Is that Loki? Yeah, even Loki's here, which is pretty cool. There's a Brood right there. Oh, these were like posters. It's awesome. Like that one. Wow, I'm super happy they included these in this Omni. That's actually awesome. God, yeah, okay. I could stare at Jim Lee art all day. Something I also wanted to touch on real quick is something I talked about in my live yesterday, which is that X-Men was, when it was coming out, it was the most popular book for at least for a while, it was the most popular book from Marvel. Once we got to the point where Chris Claremont took over, and you got the guys like John Byrne stuff drawing, and I already talked about all that, how amazing that was. But over at DC, you did have a competitor in the New Teen Titans. So I have the first issue of the New Teen Titans right here. I keep this one in like a binder of comic books, which is why it's in this kind of bag. But this book, I have the Omnis for this. I have all 5 Omnis. This is one of them right here. This stuff, I think, I wouldn't say it's on par. Well, if you want to read something that's really good for a lot of the same reasons from DC, from this same era, then I would read this. This is like what DC was using to really compete with what was going on with X-Men over at Marvel at the time. And it's so good. And I also have the issue where it's the first appearance of Nightwing. And here, we can look at it like this. So this is when Robin says, I'm going to be my own hero. You know, I'm not going to be Robin anymore. Dick Grayson. And he becomes Nightwing, and he has this awesome. I wish they would make a modern costume that like kind of homaged his original costume, because I love this. I mean, the collar and the deep V is hilarious. But yeah, this is the issue where he first appears. This is his very first costume as Nightwing. You've also got Deathstroke here, who was going by Terminator at the time, and Jericho here. There's some origins for them in this book, but the main thing is that this is the first appearance of Nightwing, and you can get this book for $75 in high grade, and it just goes down from there if it's not in super high grade. Mine this is like I would almost get this graded, actually. Like, this is a candidate for me to grade, I think. And I have to decide if I want to still do that with my comics. I still get some stuff graded every year at Heroes Con, but I really have to take a closer look at this to see if I do want to get this graded, because this is a candidate for like a high grade, like maybe in the 9s. But I didn't pay $75 for mine. I think I paid like $65 or something. But I honestly, I think that's a fair price for this book. And I'm really surprised. And this is a Bronze Age book, so there aren't as many Bronze Age books that go for like a crazy amount of money as there are Silver Age. But at the same time, like, the first appearance of Nightwing, I know it's not the first appearance of the character himself, right? It's not the first appearance of Dick Grayson, which is a huge, huge key. But like, when he becomes Nightwing, I'm just surprised that you could get this for $75 in a 9.8. You can. And and this is a book I was looking for a while, so I'm happy I got this one in my collection. But yeah, it's those two, right? It's those two from the Bronze Age. Excuse me, I just knocked over a stack of comics. But Chris Claremont's X-Men, and then George Perez and Marv Wolfman's Teen Titans. Amazing. Everybody should read. Everybody that loves comics should read those runs. All right, but I think I brought out some more X-Men Omnis, but honestly, at this point, I think I kind of touched on everything I wanted to touch on this in this live. And Chris Claremont's going to be back at the next Heroes Con, so I'm excited to meet him again for like the 5th time, get more stuff signed by him, hear more crazy stories from Chris Claremont at the convention. I highly recommend, if you're anywhere near Charlotte, North Carolina, and you want to go to a really, really good Comic Con that's like all focused on the comics, I think Heroes Con in Charlotte is like maybe the best comics focused convention on the East Coast. I know there's a lot of them. We're competing with some really good cons in some other states and stuff in New York and stuff like that. But the creators that they get at Heroes Con, even guys like Mark Bagley and of course Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr., Daniel Warren Johnson comes. I'm like jumping back and forth from modern to old guys, but like Steranko, Jim Steranko is there, although he charges like $50 for a signature and talks to you for like 30 minutes, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But yeah, Heroes Con, awesome. And Chris Claremont is always there. So maybe I'll get some more omnibuses signed by him this year. I don't know. I had totally forgot that I had gotten those omnis signed until I just opening them up and went through them and saw Chris Claremont's signatures in there. Um, but yeah, I love X-Men. I'm still reading through it. There's so much history of X-Men that it's going to take me a long time to like feel like I've read the majority of the Uncanny X-Men run, but I'm always working on it. I take a break every now and then though, and like I said, sometimes I jump forward and I do the new X-Men and stuff like that. But I think that's gonna be it for my stream today. I'm trying to stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. This week got a little thrown off because my stream on Tuesday got messed up, so then I streamed again Wednesday, and now I'm streaming Friday. Whatever. But that's going to be the schedule that I'm going to try to stick to. If you are watching the VOD or whatever, and there's something that you want me to talk about in a future live stream, please leave a comment and let me know. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching.